Hey there, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be creating one of the most popular and funnest games today, Memory Game. The project will be created based on HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and in this project we will use object-oriented programming. First of all, I'm going to describe the project. The Memory Game is one of the most popular, entertaining and funnest games. As you can see, we have here a board which consists of cells. The board is square, meaning we have the same number of rows and columns. In this case, the board consists of 16 cards. They are hidden behind the cells. The goal of the game is to find the matching couples, meaning we have 8 couples hidden and we have to find them. For example, if we click the cell, then the card will rotate. Then you have to click another cell and another card will rotate. If you are lucky and you find the matching card, then both cards will remain rotated. If you don't find the matching card, then the cards will hide. So you have to remember where the cards are placed in order to find the matching cards with as few wrong attempts as possible. So that's the goal of the memory game. Once you find all matching cards, then the game will finish. You can see here the options. By default, the board consists of 16 cells, but you can select other options as well. You can switch to 36 cells, and also we have here 64 cells. Many cells automatically mean that the game is harder but more interesting. Below you can see the timer and also the button New Game. If I click it, then the pop-up message will display asking if we want to quit the game. If I click yes, then the game will reset to a 16 cell board. Let's go ahead and play the game quickly. So once we finish the game, then the pop-up message will appear saying that the game is over, and we have here the details, time spent, wrong attempts, and the button to start the game again. Alright, so that's all about the rules of the game and the functionality of our project. The game is responsive to different screen sizes. If I inspect the page, switch to the responsive mode, and check the project on different screen sizes and devices, I have prepared here a couple of different screen sizes and devices like desktop screens, tablets and mobile screen sizes. You will see that the project is responsive and it looks good on every screen size and device. Alright, so before we jump right into building the project, please don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming tutorials. Now let's get started. I have created a new folder on the desktop called Memory Game, in which I store another folder for the images. I have here all the images that we're going to use throughout this project. Let's go ahead and open this folder in VS Code and then create our working files. We need to create index.html. Then the second file is going to be style.css. And then I'm going to create script.js. Next, I'm going to open index.html file and create the basic HTML document. We have to place here an exclamation mark and then hit tab or enter. So here we go. We have here the basic HTML tags. I'm going to change the title. It's going to be Memory Game. And then I'm going to link the CSS and JavaScript files. Let's open link tag. And in the hReference attribute, I'm going to specify the name of the CSS file. It's going to be style.css. And then I'm going to link the JavaScript file. I'm going to open script tag. And in the source attribute, we have to define the file name. It's going to be script.js. And also, I'm going to add here an attribute called defer. So when the browser sees a script tag with defer, it starts loading the JavaScript file right away. But it doesn't stop building the rest of the web page. It keeps going, putting together the HTML, styling it, and so on, while the script is still loading in the background. So once the HTML is all set up and the browser is done loading everything else, it goes back to the script and runs it. This way your web page appears faster because it doesn't wait for the script to finish loading before showing the content. But the script still runs, making your web page interactive and dynamic. Next, I'm going to add here another attribute, and it's going to be type with the value module. So this attribute specifies that the script should be treated as a JavaScript module Modules are a way to organize JavaScript code, allowing for better code organization, encapsulation, and reuse. When a script is marked as a module, it runs in its own scope, not in the global scope of the document. It also allows the use of import and export statements for module dependencies. So as you remember, we're going to use an object-oriented JavaScript in this project, so that's why we need here type with the value module. Alright, so that's it. I'm going to run the project to the browser using live server. Then let's place the browser and the editor side by side, like so. It will make our working process simple and convenient. And now I'm going to create the HTML markup for our project. Let's open div tag with the class name container. It will wrap the entire contents of our project. Next, I'm going to open form elements. Let's get rid of action attribute. We don't need it. So inside the form element, I'm going to insert select elements. Name is going to be choice. Then I'm going to get rid of ID attribute and let's insert here class attribute. The class name is going to be select cells number. So inside the select element, we need option. The value is going to be 16. Then I'm going to add here another attribute, selected, because this one will be a default option. Once we reload the page, the default option will be 16. Okay, let's duplicate this element twice. So the second option is going to be 36. As for the third option, I'm going to insert here 64. Alright, that's it about the options. Next, I'm going to open div tag with the class name playground. It's going to be an empty element. Then after playground, I'm going to open model, in which I'm going to open another div element, and it's going to be model content. Inside the model content, I'm going to open h2 heading elements with the class name model heading. The content is going to be game over. Then after heading elements, we need to create div with the class name model time, in which I'm going to insert span element, time spent. Then after div element, I mean the model time, I'm going to open h3 heading element, and it's going to be model text. The text is going to be wrong attempts. Then I'm going to insert here span element with the class name wrong. And let's insert here 5. After heading element, we need to create a button with the class name btn. It's going to be a common class name. And also we need here an individual class, and it's going to be model btn. Let's add here text start again. Okay, so that's it about the button. Next I'm going to create div element, and it's going to be features. It will include the div element with the class name timer. Let's insert here span element. We need 2 zeros. And then I'm going to insert here minutes. Then we need again span, again zeros, and then seconds. Alright, so that's it about the timer. Next I'm going to create button with the classes btn and then restart btn. The text is going to be new game. Alright, so I think that's it about the HTML markup. So here we have all the elements. Let's go ahead and open style.css file. I'm going to put this file on the right side of the editor. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to bring in a link for the Google Fonts throughout this project we're going to use one of the Google fonts. Let's search for Google fonts, visit the website, and I'm going to search for a font called Orbitron. So that's the font that we're going to grab. Let's click get font, then get embed code. So we have here two ways to grab the link. We can either copy these links from here, or we can click import, then grab this URL and paste it in the CSS file. Alright, after that I'm going to create some default styles. So let's go ahead and select every element using an asterisk. I'm going to get rid of default margin and padding. Let's set both of them to 0. Then I'm going to set box sizing to border box. It means that the width and height of the element will include the padding and also the border. And then I'm going to define the font family. As the default font family, I'm going to set Sequoia UI. If you don't have this font right now, you can go ahead and download it for free and install, or you can use any of the fonts you like. Alright, so that's it about the default styles. As you can see, they are applied to the elements. Next, I'm going to decrease the font size of the HTML element. So I'm going to use rem as the measurement unit throughout this project. Right now, by default, 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels because the font size of the HTML element is equal to 16 pixels. I want to convert 1 rem into 10 pixels, and for that we have to decrease the font size of the HTML element, and we have to make it 62.5%. So right now 1 rem is equal to 10 pixels. And as you can see, the size of the elements became smaller. Next, I'm going to define a couple of different variables which we're going to use throughout this project. So we need here roots. Then the first variable is going to be grid cell, and it's going to be 6. And then I'm going to create color white. Next, I'm going to create another color, and it's going to be light gray. Let's use here 555. Next we need gray, and it's going to be 222. Then we need blue. Let's make it 119EC9. Then I'm going to create gap. It's going to be 1 rem. And finally, I'm going to add here time. It's going to be 0.5 seconds. Actually, let's grab this line and paste it here. Okay, so that's it about the default and common styles. Also, we created here a couple of different variables. Next, I'm going to take care of the container. Let's select this element. The first thing that I'm going to do is to define the height. The height is going to be 100 SVH. So this is a newer unit that reflects the smallest possible viewport height visible to the user, excluding UI elements. So height 100 SVH will ensure the element fills the viewport height, but won't account for the address bar or other UI elements. This provides a more consistent layout experience compared to viewport height, especially on mobile devices where UI elements can dynamically change the viewport height. So we use SVH for creating full screen sections or backgrounds that should remain consistent regardless of UI changes. Alright, after that I'm going to place the content in the center. For that we have a couple of different ways. In this case I'm going to use CSS grid. So we need here display grid, and then place items, center. Let's check the browser. So as you can see, the content is placed in the center. Next, I'm going to select the playground, and I'm going to define background color. It's going to be F7 EEDD. After that, I'm going to define width and height. So the width is going to be 90, viewport minimum, I mean v min. So this unit represents viewport minimum. It's a relative unit in CSS that expresses a value as a percentage of the smaller dimension of the viewport. So let me explain how it works. Imagine a rectangular viewport representing your browser window. The viewport has two dimensions, width and height. Whichever of these dimensions is smaller is considered the viewport's minimum dimension. If your browser window is wider than it is tall, I mean the landscape mode, the minimum dimension will be the viewport height. Conversely, if your window is taller than it is wide, I mean the portrait mode, the minimum dimension will be the viewport width. The 90 viewport minimum value in our code instructs the element to take up 90% of this minimum viewport dimension. Okay, next I'm going to define the height. It's going to be 90 viewport minimum again. So by setting both width and height to 90 viewport minimum, we are essentially creating a square-shaped element that will always be slightly smaller than the viewport's minimum dimension. This ensures the element remains responsive and adjusts its size based on the screen orientation and size. So here are some key points to remember. The element will never be larger than 90% of the smaller viewport dimension. It will maintain a square aspect ratio regardless of the viewport orientation, and this is useful for creating responsive layouts for elements that need to stay within the viewport bounds. Alright, so hopefully you understand how viewport minimum works. Next I'm going to define the border radius, and now I'm going to use one of the variables that we created. Let's use var keyword, and then I'm going to pass here gap. It is equal to 1 rem. So let's go ahead and check the browser. So we have here the playground. Next, I'm going to customize the model. So let's go ahead and select model. First of all, I'm going to find the position. It's going to be fixed. Next, I'm going to define inset property and set it to 0. So when you set inset to 0, it means that you set all 4 properties, I mean the top, left, bottom, and right positions to 0. So instead of writing here those 4 properties, you can simply use inset with the value 0. Alright, next I'm going to define the background color, and I'm going to use RGBA value. We need here 119, 118, then 115, and the opacity is going to be 0.604. Let's check the browser. So here we have the background and also the model, which is spread to the entire page. Next, I'm going to set display to grid, and then I'm going to place the content in the center using place items with the value center. Okay, so here we have the content of the model, and the content is placed in the center. Next, I'm going to customize the contents. So let's go ahead and select model contents. First of all, I'm going to use flexbox to align the elements inside the model contents. So let's set display to flex. Then I'm going to change the direction. I'm going to place the flex items vertically in a column. Therefore, we need here flex direction to be column. Then we need to place the content in the center vertically using justify content center. In general, when you use justify content center, you place the flex items in the center but horizontally. But once we change the direction and we made it column, then justify content center centers the elements vertically. Alright, next I'm going to center the elements horizontally using align items center. Let's check the browser. After that, I'm going to define the gap between the flex items. So I'm going to use row gap. Let's set it to variable gap. Then I'm going to define the width. It's going to be 40 rem. Also, we need aspect ratio. It's going to be 1. It means that the width and height of the element will be equal. Let's check the browser. So as you can see, we have here the gap between the rows. Next, let's change the background color. Let's set it to RGBA value. We need here white color, 255 3 times. And the opacity is going to be 0.863. Alright, after that, let's make the corners of the model rounded. So we need border radius. And as the value, I'm going to use variable gap. Alright, so that's it about the model content. Next, I'm going to take care of the model heading. So let's go ahead and select model heading. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to increase the font size. It's going to be 4 rem. Then let's change the color. And I'm going to use here variable light gray. Also, we need here margin at the bottom. And the value is going to be variable gap. Let's check the browser. So the heading looks pretty nice. Next, I'm going to take care of the time of the model content. So I'm going to select time. Actually, we need here model time. Let's use again flexbox. We need display flex. Then I'm going to align items in the center. I'm going to center the flex items vertically. So we need here center. And also I'm going to create some gap between the columns using column gap. And the value is going to be variable gap. Okay, so after that, let's go ahead and select this span element inside the model time. So I'm going to select model time. Then we need the child combinator. And we have to select span. So the CSS child combinator selects only the direct child elements of the previously targeted element, in this case model time. So let's define the font size. It's going to be 1.8 rem. And then I'm going to change the color. Let's use here variable gray. Oops, we need here gray. Let's check the browser. So as you can see, the first span element is customized. Next, I'm going to take care of the model text. So let's go ahead and select model text. First of all, let's define font size. It's going to be 1.8 rem. Then I'm going to make the text uppercase using text transform. Uppercase. Change the color. Let's use here variable light gray. Then I'm going to change the font weight. It's going to be 500. Let's place this line of code up. Okay, so that's it about the model text. Let's check the browser. As you can see, the model text looks good. Next, we have to take care of the button, start again. So let's go ahead and select button with the class name btn. As you remember, it is a common class name. We use this class name for 2 buttons. The first one is start again, and the second button is here, new game. So first of all, I'm going to define box sizing property, and I'm going to set it to content box. So in this case, the width and height of the element will no longer include the padding and the border. So let's define padding. I'm going to set it to 0.5 rem at the top and bottom sides, and then we need 1 rem on the left and right sides. Next, let's change the background color. I'm going to set background color to blue. Then let's go ahead and get rid of default border. Let's set it to none. Also, I'm going to make the button rounded using border radius. The value is going to be 0.5 rem. Let's check the browser. Okay, let's go ahead and add some more styles to the button. Next thing that I'm going to do is to define the font size, and it's going to be 1.2 rem. Then I'm going to make the text uppercase. Also, let's go ahead and create some space between the letters. Let's set it to 0.1 rem. Then change the color of the text. I'm going to use white color. And finally, let's set margin at the top to 2 RAM. Also make the cursor pointer. Okay, so that's it about the buttons. Actually, as you can see, both buttons are customized. Next, I'm going to hide the model. So let's go ahead and add to the model opacity 0 and visibility hidden. So as you can see, the model is hidden. Actually, we don't have here any values for the options. Let's check the code. So we need here 16, then 36, then 64, and also we need selected for the first option only, not for all of them. So as you can see, now we have here 16 selected by default, and also you see here 36 and 64. Okay, let's go ahead and customize the features. I'm going to select features. Let's use Flexbox. We need display flex. Then I'm going to align items in the center and also create some gap between the columns using column gap. And the value is going to be 3 RAM. Okay, next I'm going to select the restart btn. So let's select features followed by the restart btn. We need some individual styling for the second button. So let's go ahead and set margin to 0. And also we need here font size to be, actually we need here font size. It's going to be 1 RAM. Alright, so that's it about the restart btn. Next I'm going to customize the timer. So let's go ahead and select timer. First thing that I'm going to do is to change the font family. Let's use here the font that we grabbed from the Google Fonts website. So the font family is going to be Orbitron sans serif. Next I'm going to define the font size. It's going to be 1.3 RAM. And also change the color. I'm going to use here blue color. Okay, so here we have the timer. Next I'm going to select the span elements. Let's go ahead and select timer followed by the span. I'm going to use the same font family. Let's grab this line of code and paste it here. Then I'm going to increase the font size. Let's set it to 1.6 RAM. And also I'm going to set the width of the span element. Let's set it to 2.7 RAM. Alright, after that I'm going to select span elements. I mean the last child of the timer, the second span element. So let's go ahead and select timer followed by the span, and we need here last child pseudo class. Let's set margin left to 0.5 RAM. Alright, so that's it about the CSS for now. Now I'm going to start to write some JavaScript. First of all, I'm going to create new folder, and it's going to be JS. Then inside that folder, I'm going to create 2 different files. The first one is going to be controller.js. As for the second file, I'm going to create elements.js. Then inside the elements.js file, actually I'm going to put these files here on the left side. So inside the elements file, I'm going to create a JavaScript class. JavaScript class is a blueprint for creating objects with properties and methods. So we need class elements. Then inside the class, I'm going to create a constructor function. So this function gets executed when a new instance of the class is created. And down below, I'm going to insert export default, and I'm going to specify here elements. So this line of code exports the elements class so that it can be imported and used in other JavaScript files. The export default syntax allows you to export a single value or object as the default export of a module. In this case, the default export is the elements class. Now I'm going to open controller.js and I'm going to import elements from elements.js file. Actually, we need elements.js. Now here inside the controller file, I'm going to create JavaScript class, and it's going to be controller. Then again, we need here a constructor function. So inside the constructor method, we have to create a new instance of the elements class and assign it to the elements property of the controller instance. This means that every controller object will have an associated elements object stored in the elements property. So we need here this dot elements, and then I'm going to insert here new elements. So in JavaScript, this keyword refers to the current execution context, which can vary depending on how a function is called. In the context of the controller class constructor, this refers to the current instance of the controller class. When you create a new instance of controller using the new keyword, this inside the constructor refers to that newly created instance. In this case, we assign a new instance of the elements class to the elements property of the current controller instance. This means that whenever a new controller object is created, it will have a property named elements which holds an instance of the elements class. Alright, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. Next, I'm going to export controller. Then I'm going to open script.js file and I'm going to import controller from. Now we need to enter the JS folder that we have created, and then we have to select controller.js. And finally, I'm going to create new instance. We have to call controller with new keyword. Okay, now I'm going to test if those files are connected correctly. So I'm going to go to the elements.js file, and then inside the constructor function, I'm going to create some kind of test. We need this .test to be equal to console.log, and I'm going to run to the console something like hi. Okay, so let's go to the browser and inspect the page. I'm going to switch to the console tab. So as you can see, we have here hi. It means that everything's correct and every file is connected correctly. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this test from here. So now we have to get access to the values of the select elements. We have to get access to the values of the options. We have 3 different options. We have here 16, 36, and 64. So I'm going to go to the script.js file and create new variable. It's going to be select cells number. It should be equal to documents.querySelector. We have to select, actually we need here dot, then select cells number. So as you can see, we create here a new instance of the controller class. Now I'm going to insert an argument here and assign this new instance to the variable. So I'm going to insert here select cells number, and then I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be game, and it should be equal to new controller. Alright, after that I'm going to add an event listener to the select cells number. The event is going to be change. So I'm going to insert select cells number followed by the add event listener, and as I said, I'm going to insert here an event called change. So the change event will trigger once we change the values of the select element. I'm going to pass here a callback function. And also we need here an event object. Okay, so after that, I'm going to select the playground. I mean this element here. It is empty right now. And then we have to define its HTML content. So I'm going to use query selector method. Then I'm going to pass here a class name, playground. And then, as I said, we have to define its HTML content. For that, I'm going to use property called inner HTML. And right now it should be equal to an empty string. After that, I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be new game. And then we have to call class controller. I mean, we have to create new instance. And as the argument, I'm going to pass here e.target.value. So this argument refers to the value of the select element. I mean those values here. So as you see, we passed here a parameter select_number, and now we call this class and we pass here an argument e.target.value. I mean the value of the select element. E.target in this case refers to the select element. Alright, so now I'm going to go to the controller.js file and I'm going to pass a parameter in the constructor function, and the parameter is going to be cards number. In cards, I mean the cards that will be hidden behind the cells. Besides that, I'm going to insert here an argument cards number as well. Then we have to go back to the elements.js file, and in the constructor function I'm going to pass here the same parameter cards number. Alright, so now inside the constructor function I'm going to create new variable. We need this dot cards number. It should be equal to cards number. Then I'm going to create another variable and it's going to be playground. So we need here this dot playground. It should be equal to document.query selector, and we have to specify here the class name playground. After that, I'm going to create new method here inside the elements constructor function. So the method is going to be create card. And now I'm going to run to the console. Cards number. Actually, we need here this dot cards number. And finally, we have to call this method here in the constructor function. We need this dot create card. Alright, let's go to the browser. So once we change the value of the select element, then we will get this value in the console. So as you can see, everything works fine and we have access on the values of the select element. Okay, let's go back to the VS Code. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to add some CSS to the playground. So I'm going to use CSS grid. We need display grid. And then I'm going to define gap between the columns and rows. So we need here variable gap, which is equal to 1 rem. And also I'm going to define padding with the same value. Alright, so right now nothing is changed here. Now we have to define the rows and columns of the playground, and we have to do that here in the create card function. So I'm going to insert here this dot playground. Then we need style, and I'm going to use here grid template rows. I'm going to define the rows. So let's open template literals. We need to use repeat function. Inside the repeat function, I'm going to insert one of the JavaScript built-in methods, and it's called math.squareRoot. This function returns the square root of a number. Inside the parentheses, I'm going to insert this dot cards number, and then we need here one fractional unit. as the size of the row. So if the cards number is 16, then the number of rows will be 4. In case of 36, the number of rows will be 6. And in case of 64, the number of rows will be 8. So that's the way how math.squareroot function works. Now in the same way we have to define the columns. So I'm going to duplicate this line of code. We need grid template columns. And then we need the same values here. Alright, so let's go to the browser. I'm going to switch to the Elements tab and find Playground. And I'm going to click this button here, Grid. Now if I change the values of the select elements, then we will get here this grid system. So as you can see, if we select 16, then we will get 4 columns and 4 rows. Then in case of 36, we'll get here 6 columns and 6 rows. And in case of 64, we'll get here 8 columns and 8 rows. Alright, so everything works fine. Let's go back to the VS Code. Now I'm going to create a new variable, which is going to be an array. I'm going to insert here this dot cards index. It should be equal to an empty square bracket. Now we need to create indexes, double them and push them into an array. For example, when 16 is selected in the options, we have to push into an array numbers from 1 through 8, which is a half of the selected value. And also we need to double those indexes. I mean, we need numbers from 1 through 8 twice in the array. So I'm going to create new method and I'm going to call it double index. Then I'm going to insert here for loop. Let's create variable I. It's going to be a counter and it should be equal to 1. Then we need the condition I is less than or equal to this dot cards number, and finally we need I plus plus, the increment of the I variable. So now we have to use a conditional statement where we have to check if the variable I is less than or equal to half of the cards number. So we need here I is less than or equal to this dot cards number divided by 2. If this condition is true, then we have to add the number to the array. So we need here a question mark, and then I'm going to add here this dot cards index dot push, and we have to specify here the variable I. So for example, if the selected value is 16, then this condition will be true until the value of I variable reaches 9. So when the value of I variable becomes 9, then we have to subtract the half of the cards number. In this case, we will get 1 and we will push that 1 into an array. So as the result of the false condition, we need this dot cards index dot push, and we have to insert here I minus this dot cards number divided by 2. So this code will result an array in which we will have numbers from 1 through 8 twice in the case of 16. Then in the case of 36, we will have numbers from 1 through 18 twice. And in the case of 64, we will have numbers from 1 through 32. In order to see it clearly, I'm going to run to the console this dot cards index. And also we need to call the function. We need here this dot double index. Then I'm going to go to the browser. So if I change here the value, then we will get an array in which we have numbers from 1 through 18 twice. So we have here numbers from 1 through 18, then again numbers from 1 through 18. If we change the value and make it 64, then we'll get numbers from 1 through 32 twice. And the same will happen in case of 16. Alright, so everything works fine. Next, I'm going to create the cards and also the images. I'm going to display the images on the playground. So for that, I'm going to insert here this dot cards index. I'm going to iterate over cards indexes, and for that I'm going to use array helper method for each. It should take up a callback function, and as the parameter I'm going to insert here index. So as I said, we're going to create cards. So I'm going to create new variable, it's going to be card, and then I'm going to use method called create element. We need to create div element. Next, I'm going to add a new class to the newly created card element. So we need here card.classList. Then we need method add, and I'm going to specify here the class name. It's going to be card. Alright, so after that, I'm going to add another attribute to the card. So we need card.setAttribute, and I'm going to specify here the name of the attribute. It's going to be data index, and as the value I'm going to pass here index. Alright, so that's it about the card. Next I'm going to create image in the same way. So we need variable img. Then again, let's go ahead and use create element method. Actually, we need here create element, and I'm going to specify here the element. It's going to be image. Next, I'm going to define the source of the image. We need here image.source. It should be equal to template literals. Then we have folder called images. Next, we need icon. If we check the images, you will see that all the images have name starting with icon, and then we have the number. So we need here icon dash, and as the number I'm going to insert here index, and then we need the extension png. Okay, so after that I'm going to append image to the card. So we need card.append image, and finally we have to append card to the playground. So we need here this dot playground dot append, and I'm going to pass here card. Alright, so that's it. Let's go to the browser. Let's change the values. So as you can see, we have here the images. Actually, I'm going to switch on the grid system. So if we select 64, then we'll get 64 icons. And in case of 16, we'll get here 16 different icons. Alright, so now I'm going to add some CSS to the cards and images. Let's go ahead and select card. I'm going to change the background color. It's going to be white. Then I'm going to set box shadow to 0.3 RAM, and the color is going to be EEE. Also, I'm going to use grid. We need display grid, and we have to place the images in the center of the card. So we need to place item center. Next, I'm going to inherit the border radius, and also make the cursor pointer. Okay, so that's it about the card. Next, I'm going to take care of the images. Let's select card image. I'm going to set width and height to 100%. Then I'm going to use object fit, and as the value I'm going to add here scale down. So in this case, the content inside the element will be scaled down to fit the container box while preserving its aspect ratio. In a sense, scale down will make sure that the content is displayed as large as possible while still fitting within the container, either at its original size or scaled down. It's like contain, but it won't enlarge the content if it's smaller than the container. Alright, so that's the way how scale down value works. Next, I'm going to change the background color. Let's use again color white. And finally, I'm going to inherit again for the radius. Okay, let's go to the browser. So everything works fine. As you can see, all the images are displayed. Nice. Okay, so now we have to shuffle the images. We have to display randomly images on each selection of the value. Let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to create new method, and it's going to be shuffle indexes. Then I'm going to pass here an argument. It's going to be array. Then we need return array.sort. So this method is called on the input array. The sort method is used to sort the elements of an array in place and return the sorted array. If no comparison function is provided to sort, the elements are converted to strings. In this case, I'm going to pass here a callback function. Then we need math.random, and we have to subtract 0.5. So this callback function is used as a comparison function for sorting. Math.random generates a random floating point number between 0 and 1. In this case, 0 is inclusive and 1 is exclusive. By subtracting 0.5, we effectively have a random number that can be positive or negative. This means that the sorting function will return a positive number, negative number, or 0 randomly, effectively shuffling the array randomly. The sorting function provided to sort takes two elements of the array as parameters. Let's call them A and B. It compares these two elements based on the return value of the arrow function. If the return value is negative, A will be placed before B in the sorted array. If the return value is positive, B will be placed before A. And if the return value is 0, the relative order of A and B remains unchanged. As math.random generates random numbers, the comparison function will effectively produce a random order for the elements in the array. This results in the array being shuffled randomly. Alright, now the next thing that we have to do is to add here this dot shuffle indexes, and we have to wrap this dot cards index with parentheses. Alright, let's go to the browser. Actually, the images are not visible. We might have some problem. Well, let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to check the console. So here we should have the number of cells. It gives us the number of cells once we select the value. So we might have some tiny issue in the script.js file. Let's quickly check the code. So actually we need here select sus number with value, not only just a variable. We need here value. Okay, so this might be the reason of the issue. Let's go to the browser, and yes, now everything works fine. If we reload the page, then we will get images in different orders. They are shuffled. Okay, so everything works fine. Next, I'm going to take care of the attempts and points. I mean correct and wrong attempt. So let's go back to the VS Code. The next thing that I'm going to do is to create new variable. I mean new property. Let's call it this.cards. And I'm going to select all the cards using document.query selector all method. Let's specify here the class name card. And besides that, I'm going to create another property, and it's going to be this dot attempts. This is going to be an object in which we will have three different properties. The first one is going to be correct, 0, then we will have here wrong. Let's set it to 0 as well, and finally we need here click, and it's going to be 0. So we store here the correct attempts, also the wrong attempts, and the number of clicks. Okay, let's go to the controller.js file, and after constructor function I'm going to create new function, new method called click card. So now I'm going to use destructuring assignment to extract the attempts and also the cards properties from these elements. We have to extract two properties that we created in the elements.js file, cards and attempts. So I'm going to use destructuring, and I'm going to insert here attempts and also cards. It should be equal to this dot elements, because we are grabbing those properties from elements class. Okay, after that I'm going to iterate over the cards using for each method. So we need here cards.forEach. Then I'm going to insert here a callback function, and as the parameter I'm going to insert here card. It's going to be the current card through the loop. So next I'm going to add an event listener to the card with click event. So we need here add event listener, and the event is going to be click, and also I'm going to pass here a callback function which will be executed once we click the card. So next we have to increment the click property of the attempts object by 1. We need to track the number of clicks, so we need here attempts dot click, and then we need an increment operator. And then after that I'm going to add a new class name to the card. It's going to be, let's use add method. So it's going to be class, let's call it change. Okay, now I'm going to call this function here in the constructor method. We need here this dot click card. Then go to the browser. I'm going to drop down playground. Here we have all the cards, and now if I click the card, the first card, we will get here class change. The same happens with other cards as well. Alright, so we will use this class name then later in the CSS file. We will define some new styles which will be added to the card on click. Okay, so now I'm going to add background color to the image once we click the card. Let's select card with class change, then we need image. I'm going to change the background color. We need some temporary background color, let's say green. Okay, let's go to the browser. Actually, I'm going to get rid of grid. So if I click the cards, then we'll get green background color. Okay, so everything works fine. Next, I'm going to go back to the VS Code, and in the click card function, we have to manage one thing. Once we click two cards, once the number of clicks is equal to 2, then we have to pause the game for a while in order to avoid opening the third card. So I'm going to use an if statement in which I'm going to check if attempts.click is equal to 2. So if this condition is true, then as I said, I'm going to pause the game for a while. I'm going to iterate over the cards, so we need cards.forEach. Then I'm going to pass here a callback function. As the parameter, I'm going to insert card. Then I'm going to add new class to the card. So we need card.classList.add. And I'm going to add here new class name. Let's call it pose. After that, I'm going to use set timeout function because I want to remove this class name after some amount of time. So let's use set timeout function. I'm going to pass here a callback function, and I'm going to remove class pose from the card. I'm going to remove class pose after 1 second, so I'm going to pass here 1000 milliseconds. Then in the CSS file, I'm going to select card with pose. Actually, we need here dots. And I'm going to insert here pointer events none. Okay, so let's go to the browser. Now if I click two cards and then try to click the third one, I won't be able to do that. Let's check. So as you can see, I'm not able to click the third card after clicking two cards, but then after 1 second I will be able to click. So let's test again. As you can see, during 1 second the pointer events are disabled. That's why I cannot click the card. Okay, so everything works fine. The next thing that I'm going to do is to create a new property, and it's going to be the previously clicked card. So I'm going to add here new property. It's going to be this.pref card. Now I'm going to create an else statement here, and in the else statement I'm going to insert this.pref card equal to card. So if the click count in attempts is less than 2, if this condition is false, we assign the currently clicked card to previously clicked card. Alright, so now we have to check if the previously clicked card matches the clicked card. We have to compare their index numbers. So inside the if statement, I'm going to create another if statement. The condition is going to be this.pref card dot dataset dot index is equal. I'm going to grab this code. We need here card dataset index. If this condition is true, it means that the previously clicked card and clicked card match. Therefore, we have to increase the number of correct attempts. So we need here attempts dot correct. As you remember, correct is the property of attempts object. We have to increase correct by 1, so we need here an increment operator. Then after that, I'm going to add new class to the card, and it's going to be stop. We have to stop the game, and the same we need for the previously clicked card. So we need here this dot pref card dot class list dot add stop. Now I'm going to define the styles for the stop class in the CSS file. I'm going to select card with the class name stop, and we need here again pointer events none. Next, I'm going to create here an else statement. So if the condition in the if statement is false, it means that the previously clicked card and clicked card don't match. Therefore, we have to increase the number of wrong attempts. We need here attempts dot wrong plus plus, and also I'm going to remove class change from the card and also from the previously clicked card. But in this case, we need again set timeout function. We have to remove this class after 1 second. So I'm going to use set timeout function. Then I'm going to insert here a callback function. Actually, we need here an arrow. So as I said, we have to remove class change from the card, and also we have to remove class change from the previously clicked card. So let's duplicate this line of code, and I'm going to insert here this dot pref card. As for the amount of time, it's going to be 1000 milliseconds. And finally, we have to reset the number of clicks. Therefore, we need here attempts dot click, and it should be equal to 0. Alright, so in order to make it clear, I'm going to run to the console, correct and wrong attempt. So we need here attempts dot correct, and also I'm going to insert here attempts dot wrong. Then I'm going to go to the browser. Let's switch to the console tab. So if I click the first card and then I click the matching card, the background color will remain, and in the console we will get correct attempt 1 and wrong attempt 0. Then if I click different icons, then the background color will disappear in 1 second, and in the console we will get correct 1 and wrong 1. Alright, so everything works perfectly. Let's go back to the VS Code, and in the elements file I'm going to start to work on the model. So let's go ahead and create new property. It's going to be this.model. I'm going to select this element. We need here documents.query selector, and I'm going to specify here the class name. It's going to be model. Then we need model btn. Let's duplicate this code. I'm going to change the name of the property. It's going to be model btn, and also I'm going to change the class name. We need model btn, and then I'm going to create third property. It's going to be this.wrong. Let's go ahead and select these elements. It's going to be wrong. If you don't remember this element, I'm going to show it to you in the index.html file. So here we have it, wrong. It is a span element in the model text. After that, I'm going to go to the controller.js file, and I'm going to create new method. It's going to be endgame. I'm going to insert here objects, and it's going to be correct, and I will explain what does it mean. So the method endgame accepts an object as an argument. It uses the structuring to extract the correct property from the past object. This method will be responsible for determining if the game has ended based on the number of correct matches. Next, we have to extract a couple of different properties from the elements class. So I'm going to use the structuring. The first property is going to be cards number. Then we need model btn. The next one is going to be wrong, and also we need here attempts. We need to grab those properties from these .elements. Alright, so after that we have to define the end game. For that I'm going to use if statement. So the game ends when the correct attempt is equal to half of the cards number. As you remember, if we select 16 in the options, then the number of matching couples is 8, the half of the cards number. So we need here if statement, in which we have to check if correct is equal to cards number divided by 2. If this condition is true, it means that the game is ended. So I'm going to run to the console, some text, let's say U1. Then I'm going to display the model, which is hidden right now. So we need here model.style.css text, and we have to insert here visibility. Actually, we need here visibility visible, and also we need opacity 1, which is 0 right now. After that, I'm going to define the text content of the wrong attempt. So we need here wrong.text content, and it should be equal to attempts.wrong. This is the property which stores the number of wrong attempts. Alright, after that we need to reload the page, and we have to reload the page once we click the model btn. So we need here model btn. Then I'm going to add here click event handler, and it should be equal to an arrow function where we have to insert location dot reload. It will reload the page. Alright, next we need else statements. So if the game is not yet over. I'm going to run to the console some text. So let's insert here, for example, not yet. Okay, so now we have to call this function in the click cart method, and we have to call it here. Actually, we need here this dot endgame, and I'm going to insert here attempts object as the argument. All right, so now I'm going to go to the browser and I'm going to play the game. So let's find quickly the matching couples. Okay, so once we finish the game, then the model is displayed. We don't have here any wrong attempts. All the attempts were correct. We have here message you won, and before we finish the game, we were getting here on each attempt not yet, which is placed in the else statement. Now if I click start again, then the game will start again. Okay, so everything works perfectly. Next, I'm going to take care of the timer. So let's go to the VS Code and open elements.js file. I'm going to create new property. It's going to be this.restart btn, and I'm going to select this element using document.querySelector method. Let's specify here the class name restart btn. Also, I'm going to create another property. It's going to be this.timer. It should be equal to document.querySelector, and I'm going to specify here the class name timer. And finally, we need this.modelTime, and it should be equal to document.querySelector, and I'm going to insert here model time. Alright, now let's go back to the controller.js file. I'm going to create two new properties. The first one is going to be this.startClock, and I'm going to make it equal to true. It's going to be a Boolean value. And then I'm going to define the second property. It's going to be this.time. I'm going to declare this property for now. So next I'm going to create a new method after endgame method, and it's going to be setTime. So first of all, I'm going to initialize a variable int, and I'm going to make it equal to 1. This variable will be used to keep track of the elapsed time in seconds. So we need here let int equal to 1. Next we have to destructure the timer property from the elements class. So I'm going to use destructuring. We need here const timer from the elements class. After that, we have to set up a recurring function using setInterval method. This function will be executed every 1000 milliseconds, and it will increment the int variable by 1 on each call. So we need here this dot time to be equal to setInterval. I'm going to pass here a callback function. So now we have to calculate the remaining seconds by taking the remainder of int divided by 60. This will ensure that seconds will always be between 0 and 59. So we need here variable seconds, and it should be equal to int modulus 60. Now we have to update the inner HTML content of the second child element of the timer element. It should display the seconds with a leading 0 if it's less than 10. So we need here timer dot children, and we have to select the second child. So we need here index number 1. And then I'm going to use inner HTML property, and it should be equal to seconds is greater than 9. If it is true, then we need seconds, and if it is false, then I'm going to open template literals. We need leading 0 and then variable seconds. Okay, after that I'm going to calculate the elapsed minutes by dividing int by 60 and rounding down using math.floor function. So I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be minutes, and it should be equal to math.floor, and I'm going to pass here int divided by 60. Like the seconds, we have to update the HTML content for the minutes as well. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it down here. Now we need children 1, the first child element, not 1 but 0, sorry. Next we need here minutes, then again minutes and minutes. Okay, so after that I'm going to add here int plus plus. This increments the int variable by 1 on each call of the interval function, effectively counting the number of seconds elapsed. And finally I'm going to pass here the amount of time for the set interval function. Is going to be 1000 milliseconds. Alright, after that I'm going to find the click card method, and here after add event listener I'm going to pass here this dot start clock and this dot set time. So it means that if the start clock is true, then the set time function will be called, and down below after else statement we have to make this dot start clock false. Okay, let's go to the browser and start the game. So as you can see, the timer works fine. Okay, so everything works perfectly for now. Let's go back to the VS Code. Now I'm going to create a method stop time after set time function. Let's create stop time. It will allow us to clear the interval, so we need here clear interval, and I'm going to pass here this dot time. Now in the end game, where we extract properties using destructuring from the elements class, I'm going to add here timer and also model time. So now I'm going to add 2 lines inside the if statement in the endgame function. If the game has ended, if the player has won, the timer is stopped. Additionally, start clock is set to true, indicating that the clock should be restarted if the game is replayed. So we need to insert here this dot start clock to be equal to true, and also we have to call stop time function. Alright, let's go to the browser and play the game quickly. So as you can see, the timer is stopped. We have here 14 seconds, and now we have to display time spent here in the model box. So let's go back to the VS Code. So now we need to create a clone of an existing DOM element called timer and then append it to the model time. So I'm going to add here const timer clone, and it should be equal to timer dot clone node, and I'm going to insert here true. So this is a method of DOM elements in JavaScript. When it is called with true as the argument, it creates a deep copy of the element and all its descendants. This means that not only the timer element itself is cloned, but also all its child elements and their attributes. Now we have to append timer clone to model time. So we need model time dot append, and I'm going to insert here timer clone. All right, let's go to the browser and test one thing. If we start to play, then the timer will start. If we change the board, if we select any other options here, the timer will continue running. So we need to reset it. Let's go back to the VS Code and open script.js file. So I'm going to create new variable. Let's call it timer content. It should be equal to HTML content. I mean, I'm going to open span. Let's close it. And I'm going to insert here zeros. And then we need min space. And again, I'm going to use span element. Let's copy this code and paste it here. So we need here zeros and then second. Also, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to declare it. So let's call it prev game. I mean previous game. Okay, now inside the event listener, I'm going to insert here game dot stop time. I'm going to call this function. And also we need to change the inner HTML of the timer. So we need here game dot elements dot timer, and then we need inner HTML property. It should be equal to timer content. After that, I'm going to add one more line, previous game, and previous game dot stop time. So this line checks if the previous game is truthy and calls the stop time method on it. If it is, this ensures that if there was a previous game, its timer is stopped. Next, I'm going to add here previous game and previous game dot inner HTML, and it should be equal to timer content. So this line also checks if the previous game is truthy and sets its inner HTML to timer content. If it is, this updates the timer display of the previous game to show 0 minutes and 0 seconds. And now, after this line of code, we need previous game equal to new game. This line assigns the new game instance to previous game, effectively updating previous game to refer to the newly created game instance. This ensures that previous game holds a reference to the most recent game instance, which can be used for comparison or cleanup in subsequent operations. Okay, let's go to the browser and start to play. So the timer started. Now if I change the board, the timer will reset. Okay, so everything works perfectly. Let's go back to the VS Code, and now I'm going to manage restarting the game. So I'm going to go to the elements.js file, and I'm going to create new method here, and I'm going to call it restart game. So I'm going to attach click event handler to the restart btn. So we need here this dot restart btn, and then on click it should be equal to a function. So once we click the restart btn, we have to display the model. So I'm going to insert here this dot model dot style dot css text, and I'm going to insert here visibility visible, then opacity 1, and also I'm going to add here transition for smoother effect. It's going to be opacity 0.5 seconds. Alright, after that I'm going to create new variable, and it's going to be model content. I'm going to assign to the model content the first element child of the model. If we check the index.html file, you'll find that model content is the first element child of the model. So I'm going to assign to the model content this dot model dot first element child. Then after that I'm going to define the inner HTML of the model content. So we need here model content dot inner HTML, and now I'm going to create the HTML markup. So I'm going to insert here h2 heading elements. Let's add here closing tag as well. So I'm going to add new class to the h2 heading element. It's going to be model text, and as the content I'm going to add here do you want to quit the game. After h2 heading element, I'm going to open div, and I'm going to insert here button. So the button will have class, and it's going to be btn, yes btn. I'm going to insert here yes as the text. Then after button, I'm going to create another button. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it here. The second button, actually we need here class with double S. So the second button is going to be cancel btn. We need here cancel, and I'm going to change the text. We need cancel. Okay, so that's it about the HTML markup. Next, I'm going to select cancel btn. So we need here model content dot query selector, and I'm going to specify here the class name cancel btn. Then I'm going to add to it click event handler, which should be equal to an arrow function. And now I'm going to define new style for the model. We have to hide the model, so we need here this dot model dot style dot css text. So in order to hide the model, we need visibility visible, and then opacity 1. Besides that, I'm going to add here transition opacity 0.5 seconds. Alright, after that, I'm going to select yes btn in the same way, and I'm going to reload the page on click. So I'm going to grab this line of code and paste it here. So we need here yes btn, and I'm going to reload the page. So I'm going to add here location dot reload. Okay, so I think everything's correct. Actually, this code should be outside. Let's move it down. Now I think everything's correct. I'm going to add CSS to the buttons. So let's go ahead and select newly created yes button and cancel button. So I'm going to use margin inline. Actually, we need here inline, just inline, not start, and it's going to be 0.5 rem. And also I'm going to define with 7 rem. The margin inline property sets the margin space on the inline axis of an element, which is determined by the writing mode of the document. Alright, so let's go to the browser. I'm going to start the game. Then I'm going to click new game, and nothing happens here. So we should have a tiny issue. Actually, I'm going to call this function. I forgot calling this function, so we need here this dot restart game. Now let's go back to the browser. I'm going to start to play. Then I'm going to click new game, and here it is. We have here model saying, do you want to quit the game? We have 2 buttons, yes and cancel. If I click yes, then the game will be restarted. Now if I click again new game and click cancel, well, nothing happens. So we should have tiny issue. Let's go back to the VS Code. Let's check the code down below. So we have here cancel btn on click. So yes, we need here visibility hidden, not visible, and then opacity 0. Let's check the result. Start to play, click new game, click cancel, and here we go. Alright, so everything works perfectly. Next, I'm going to get rid of this green background color, and I'm going to actually rotate the cards, and I'm going to hide them by default. So let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm going to add some CSS. I'm going to find card, and I'm going to add here perspective. It will create the 3D environment. As the value, I'm going to insert here 100 RAM. Then I'm going to rotate the cards. So we need transform, rotate Y. I'm going to rotate them by 180 degrees. And also I'm going to add here transition in advance. So we need transform. I'm going to use here variable time. Let's recall the value of the time. It is 0.5 seconds. And I'm going to add here delay time. It's going to be the same value, time. The transition is going to be linear. Okay, next we need card change. So I'm going to add here card change. Once we click the card, we have to disable pointer events, so we need pointer events none. Then I'm going to copy those two lines. So we need to rotate back the card, therefore we need here 0. As for the transition, I'm going to leave here transform with the duration. We no longer need the delay time. Okay, that's it about the card. Next we have to customize image. So in order to share the 3D environment to the image, we have to add to it transform style. We need here transform style with the value preserve 3D. Next I'm going to rotate the card image. So we need transform, then rotate Y with the same value 180 degrees. And also I'm going to add here transition. Actually, let's grab the same transition from here. Let's add it for the image. And also we need to add here one more property, backface visibility. It's going to be hidden. It will allow us to hide the icon. All right, now I'm going to get rid of this background color, and I'm going to add here. Actually, I'm going to grab those lines and paste them here. Then I'm going to copy those two lines and paste them here. We need rotate Y with the value 0. Also, let's get rid of delay time from here. The next thing that I'm going to do is to add transition to the model. Let's find model and add to it transition. We need here opacity and then variable time. And then also we need to add here delay time 1 second. Okay, that's it about the model. Next I'm going to select wrong. I mean the number of wrong attempts. Actually, let's check the index.html file. It is the part of model text. So I'm going to select it here. So we need wrong. I'm going to set display to inline block. Then I'm going to add margin inline. It's going to be 0.5 RAM. And also I'm going to increase the font size. Let's set it to 2.5 RAM. All right, that's it, I think. Let's go to the browser. So as you can see, the icons are no longer visible. The cards are rotated. Now I'm going to play quickly the game. Alright, so as you can see, everything works perfectly. We have here wrong attempts 6, also time spent 36 seconds. If we click start again, then the game will start again. If we change here the values of the options, then the board will change accordingly. Okay, so everything works fine. The only thing that we have to do is to make our project responsive to different screen sizes. I'm going to switch to the responsive mode, and I'm going to check project for desktop screens. So Everything looks good. I have here 6 different desktop screens. Then I'm going to check the project for tablets. So everything works fine. Let's change the board. Everything looks good. Next I'm going to check the project for mobile phones. So I think we can make here some changes. I'm going to use CSS media queries. Let's go ahead and create CSS media query. I'm going to specify the max width. Let's make it 600 pixels. So I'm going to change the value of variable gap. We need root, then gap. Right now it is equal to 1 rem, and I'm going to make it 0.5 rem. Okay. Next I'm going to select playground, and I'm going to change the width and height. Let's set width to 95 viewport minimum, and then we need height. It's going to be 95 viewport minimum. Let's check the browser. Okay, next I'm going to take care of the model. So let's go ahead and select model content. I'm going to set width to 30 rem. Then I'm going to use text align center. Now I'm going to play the game quickly. Okay, so here we have model box. It looks pretty nice, and actually with our project we are done. Hopefully you enjoyed this project and you learned some new stuff. We used here an object-oriented programming, so I think that the project was interesting and helpful. Alright, so if you like this video, then please thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming tutorials. See you in the next video.